looks like we got a few people here. Evan's going to come up here in a second once he accepts his co-host invite, which I think is happening momentarily. And we are going to get this show rolling. Like it says, we are going to talk about some preseason. We're going to talk about some rookies. And we're going to talk about the 2023 NBA draft because that is what we do. We're going to get started with some preseason reaction. So far, the Spurs have played 3 preseason games, and so far they have lost 3 preseason games. The tank is very much on, even in the preseason. Of course, there have been some injuries. Keldon Johnson has not played. Josh Primo, I don't believe, has played yet, and Zach Collins will now be limited. He entered concussion protocol after the most previous game against the Pelicans. Evan, I'm going to ask you first, sir. Has there been anything encouraging from the preseason games? If not, what is the most discouraging thing you've seen?
Oh man, there's a long list of both. I'll make it short and sweet. To be honest, the things that I've seen in terms of rotations, in terms of Blake Wesley getting a lot more minutes and getting in before Malachi Branham, a lot of people pointed that out the first 2 games, which significant 8 minutes of preseason play. Not getting in the first half, you would think the first person drafted, maybe will get that, but that just showcases, hey, Blake Wesley actually may be a solid backup point guard. Granted, we haven't seen Josh Primo. Maybe that'll have some implications in it as well. But, literally him showcasing, I'm ready. Obviously, he was like a fan favorite during the summer league, showcased his elusiveness, his first step, how quick he is. And already he's the quickest and not want to say flashiest player, but he brings a new flair to the team that the team didn't have before. So seeing stuff like that, this is, I guess, on the good and bad side, but I'm actually a fan of seeing Jamie Sohan take and even miss open threes. A lot of his misses haven't been too bad. In Baylor, I forgot what percentage it was. It was around 34-35% of his threes were banked in. And that's just really bad. That's just really actually kind of sad to think that he doesn't have that much of a touch. But I think Eric Salinas had a thread on it earlier. This guy wasn't drafted to be a scorer, and he may not ever be that, to be honest. He did no isolation game. He's really just a play finisher. He can grab the rebound, push it in transition, and find the open man. And he's done that a number amount of times. So I've seen that, and him not being afraid to take that open 3, an NBA level, NBA range 3, which is important. Obviously, it's not that much of a difference between the college 3, but him being able to take that and not be scared to take that is super, super important to me. To be honest, I love the fact that anyone else on this team, that we're not seeing a lot of animosity between the players, rotations. We kind of see that Romeo Langford might be the odd man out. Obviously, Tommy Kuhs got cut earlier. We kind of felt that would happen. There's no animosity. There's no, are we going to keep Luka Samanic moments? There's not a, oh, we got to trade Thad moment. We may obviously have people that want to get rid of Josh. I'm one of them. Obviously, I may have people maybe want to get rid of Doug. I'm one of them as well. But it's not like an intense animosity mode. You don't want that on a young team. This team does not have a star player. We don't have a franchise player. We don't have anyone that's attractive to come and play with us, to lure to come with us. So we are figuring things out before that player is drafted, hopefully next year at number 1 overall.
And I think that's a great point about, no real animosity. And I think a lot of the guys have spoken about, we have a guy like Doug McDermott. We have a guy like Josh Richardson. There are vets. They're going to teach us a lot. We have to absorb everything we can from them, before they get traded, if that happens. So I think that's definitely a great point you make. It's important to keep that in mind as the season goes on. The young guys genuinely want to learn. They want to get better. There's going to be growing pains at times. So just this season is going to be a lot about patience. This is what we all learned then.
Oh yeah, no,
And
without
we're
a doubt. I don't think anyone has crazy expectations for the Spurs amongst all of just not just draft Twitter but basketball Twitter in general. Any space I've listened to, any any ranking of any sort, it is clear as day the Spurs are at least the second to worst or the worst team, and I have nothing else to say about that. It's going to be a long season. A lot of people want the Spurs to lose every single game. I just want to see some growth, and I want our odds to increase. I'm not going to admit to say, "Oh, I'm Team Tank" or "I'm Team whatever." We all know what our fate is. Let's not just we don't have to say it. So, but that's it for that. Ben, I know you wanted to talk about more on the lines of some of these draft prospects that we can look forward to next year. Do you want to talk about them, or do you want to talk about our rookies first? We already have on the team.
let's talk about the guys we've gotten to actually see this year. Let's talk some rookies. You mentioned Jeremy Sohan. You liked that he was comfortable, at least attempting the threes. You thought it was interesting. Blake Wesley is getting more minutes, getting in first before Malachi Branham. Why do you think? Why do you think Blake Wesley is getting those minutes at least right now before Malachi Branham is, despite Branham being the 20th pick and Wesley being the 25th pick?
It has some implications with there's no solid backup point guard available, and Josh Primo is also not available, and he's not even really a point guard. Well, that's another story for another day. But right now, Blake Wesley has a chip on his shoulder. He's as confident as ever on the court, and he's not really showcasing anything besides his natural, I want to say disabilities, but the stuff that he lacks, and that is his playmaking decision. Once he's playmaking decision making, once he's inside the paint. He used to be able to finish around everyone in high school and college. He had a float game. There would be a lot of spacing in Notre Dame. Now that paint is jumbled. Everyone's taller, longer, faster, quicker. And yeah, it's it could be a mess. We've seen that already. But here's the thing, him wanting to say, "Hey, I'm a true point guard. I'm ready. I'm not only a teenager, but I'm somebody who's ready to prove and showcase. Hey, there's not only nothing. There's nobody ahead of me on the depth chart that's going to take away minutes from me. But I'm not going to screw things up. I have the confidence enough to stay out of Austin. That's I think his term. He's above Wieskamp on the depth chart. He's above a lot of these other guys who are on two-way contracts and everything else. But Malachi, that's the one that I was kind of confused on. I really wanted Malachi to get more minutes. We saw it last night. He showcased, his mid-range game is Chris Middleton S, Michael Redd S type of slow, patient game. We've seen that from summer league, but I want to see more from him. I honestly thought he may be able to start some of these preseason games. We've seen enough from Josh Richardson. We've seen enough from Doug McDermott. Obviously, you got to keep the staggered lineups enough. You got to or intact at least. But yeah, man, that's all I got for that. But what did you think?
I honestly haven't gotten to watch many preseason games, but I think what you're saying about Blake Wesley um, being more of a true point guard is one of those reasons, and of course the Primo injury is one of those reasons he's getting early minutes. I think part of it is this staff has to see what else they have, what other players they have. Like they had to play Tommy Q's minutes. They have to play, kind of their fringe guys' minutes because they have to figure out who are we waiving, who are we cutting. They have to get the roster down. So some of it is we're gonna throw guys out there like because we don't know if for the Spurs we don't know if we have them for the season. I mean, two more guys have to go if my math is correct,
Yep.
but I think part of it is that, and then you have injuries that have been detrimental at times because you really want to see Keldon Johnson in the preseason, even if it's not for many minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You just want to see, all right, does his shot look better? Is he moving better? He says he lost weight in the offseason, which is great.
Yep.
I want to see that at work. With Josh Primo, it's what did you work on during the summer? Has your shot been more consistent? Are you making better decisions? And we haven't been able to see it. It's obvious. We talked about the Spurs are tanking. Obviously, they're not going to be a very good team, but you want to see progress from those second, third, some fourth-year guys. So
no.
the preseason is where you get to see some of that.
Oh yeah, most definitely. When it comes down to Keldon, there's a lot of things that he brings to the table off rip from last year that he's supposed to be leading the team with. Not just being the leader, not just being one of the older guys, but getting to the paint, being able to create for others. Off the top of my head, I can't imagine uh, every other team having a lockdown defender and being intimidated by Keldon Johnson. That's not a knock to him. That's not I'm not trying to disrespect him in any shape, way, or form, but we're gonna have trouble creating scoring opportunities outside the pick and roll, outside the dribble handoff. Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and Jakob Pertl, that may be 60, 70 points, but we have to be able to score 80, 90 to win games. And I'm not really trusting a consistent Doug McDermott, John Fridgerson to bring 15, 20 points off every single night. So, Keldon Johnson, something I wanted to mention about him real quick as well. Him losing that weight, those 20 pounds, like you mentioned, Ben, he's not really going to play a lot of power forward, I think, anymore. We have a lot of power forwards already. We didn't have any last year. Remember the big deal I made about that last year? We have
Yep,
no power forwards. It's
absolutely.
just KBD's lengthy behind. But now, Isaiah Roby, he's a power forward. Alizé Johnson, let's see what you got, big fella. Hey, you want to earn an NBA roster spot and not be overseas like how you almost were? Yeah, come play for the military style Spurs and let's see what you got. Can you even earn 10 minutes? I don't know if he's going to be in Austin. I don't know. Obviously, Sohan is probably going to be safe. He's going to get some minutes. We know that. But, Zach Collins is a center now. He's established. He's the backup. Gorgie Jang is probably the insurance policy that we have just in case we trade anybody instead of Jakob, like Jakob or anyone else. But I'm just ready for the season, man. I'm really ready to see what this roster is going to look like after this preseason. I know that deadline's coming around soon. Literally, when it comes down to it, like I said, there's no animosity, there's no beef going along. But I'm ready to see possibly some trades as well. There hasn't been a lot of Woj bombs, sham splashes as of late. So let's
Of course.
so let's hey, no, you know how to say it. But at the end of the day, man, like I'm saying, when it comes down to it, the Spurs are going to be bad. We're going to try. I thought it was so funny. Eric Salinas tweeted, what do you think this roster? What do you think the lineup is going to look like? Starting lineup, that is, come April against a team like the Jazz, against teams like OKC. We're going to start like Alizé. We're going to start Isaiah Roby at the center. We're going to start, I don't even know, probably Blake Wesley at point guard, Malachi. Maybe have some quote unquote injuries. I don't know. Maybe some scratch offs. We'll see. But yeah,
I mean,
it's gonna be interesting.
that brings me to, I think, a good segue for our next topic, which was the Spurs are projected to win. I think it was 23 and a half or 24 and a half games by Vegas, depending on which book you're looking at.
Yep.
But like those two teams you just mentioned, the Thunder and the Jazz, they're going to be competing to get to the bottom of the standings to get potentially that top pick. And we got a preview of the two guys who are at the top of this draft last week. We got 2 games. Well, we got 2 games out of Victor Wembanyama. We got a game and maybe a quarter out of Scoot Henderson. He had that knee injury, and they kept him out for precautionary reasons. But, I mean, those 2 guys put on a show. Those games met and exceeded the hype that they had been receiving for the couple of weeks leading up to it. And, is it now incredibly clear that Victor Wembanyama is the number 1 pick? There's no doubt in your mind?
Oh yeah, it's his spot to lose. Obviously, there was I don't want to say obviously. Well, in terms of draft Twitter, there was a lot of people talking, saying, "Hey, Scoot's a safer pick." The injury history of Victor makes a lot of teams who are maybe 1 year away, rather than the Spurs 3 or 4 years away from maybe being close to contention, having a young core intact. You don't want to risk that number 1 overall pick on someone that's maybe going to play 20, 30 games. You'd rather have that star point guard that has an NBA body right now, that's been trained, that has a. Remember, we watched that documentary, little mini documentary, how he has a whole facility, Scoot Henderson that is, has a whole facility in his hometown dedicated to him working out day in and day out for the past, what, 4 or 5 years. Literally, that is incredible to even think about. And just to see him in the G League, putting the team on his back, a team of teenagers, no real roster construction, and him leading his team to victory the first game. Obviously the injury and the second game was kind of disappointing. Obviously he's going to be okay, nothing too crazy. Just some precautionary reasons. You don't want your star player to miss the first half of the season. Literally, G League and night tickets are going crazy right now. They're the highest paid G League ticket in the league, even over some Spurs tickets, surprisingly or not. But when it comes down to it, man, when you think of Scoot Henderson, he is a top overall prospect. He would have been number one last year, possibly the year before, over Cade, which was surprising to a lot of people to hear. You don't want to hear that if you're a Detroit Pistons fan, if you're a Houston Rockets fan. Him being just as good as Jalen Green, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball. The one knock to his game is that he's not a poor outside shooter. He's an inconsistent outside shooter. He doesn't take many. That's okay. Mid-range game, elite. Elite. 47% from pulling up mid-range. 45 off the pick and roll mid-range. That's Chris Paul numbers. That's Jalen Brunson numbers. That's league-ready numbers. He's the face of your franchise. But if you already have another co-star like Jalen Green, like a OKC and Shea and Giddey already sitting there ready, you can plug and play him anywhere anywhere, literally anywhere. He has a small forward shooting guard archetype body and a point guard sparky, quick, agile type of way. We have a request we'll get to in 1 second, man. But out of all the other prospects, out of all the other top prospects, these two are the only in contention to be in the race. But right now, it's clearly Victor, unless there's going to be an injury, some type of, I don't know, man. Do you think anything could take Victor off that top spot besides maybe some really poor play, which probably isn't going to happen? Do you think
it would have to be a number of things. I mean, you would have to have a serious injury. I mean, we're talking an injury that puts him out for a year, and that before the draft. It's like if it happens, kind of second half of the NBA season, sometime after January, February, and people know, he would still get picked high, but it may be that people are, you have that injury concern now. It's very real because this is now a serious injury. The few previous injuries he had were kind of bumps and bruises. They weren't super serious. They kept him out, and a lot of that was, his teams kept him out of competitions for a lot longer than maybe they would have for other players because of precaution, not necessarily because he was injured that badly. So I think it's that, and he would have to play just absurdly poor against what is going to be lesser competition that Mets 92 play compared to the G League Ignite, potentially other people they play, or other teams they may play. I don't know if they're going to try and get something on the books with Overtime Elite, which would be amazing. But it would take a number of off the rail things to happen in order for Wembanyama to not be the number one pick in this draft. Having said that, we're going to hype him up. We being people on Twitter, Draftniks, whatever, everybody is going to be hyping up Wembanyama the entire year. But if the Spurs don't get the top pick and they have to pick 2, Scoot Henderson is an incredibly great pick at 2. I want to make that clear. There is no knock on Scoot Henderson. He is fantastic. He has the right mindset to be an NBA player. He has worked his tail off the last few years. Like you said, he's got a facility that is dedicated to him bettering himself at basketball, bettering his body, and getting him ready. There are so few people who have those kinds of resources. And he has utilized them to the best of his abilities, which is fantastic. So, you can talk about Victor Wembanyama all day being the top pick. The Spurs still have to actually get the top pick and use it. So, that's the reality, right? So, in the meantime, we got to talk about other people too, because if the Spurs and maybe they go on some crazy winning streak, they get hot, they made a trade at the deadline, and that's spurred them on to win a few more games because they got a couple good players in return, whatever it is. They drop out of like the bottom three, or I guess I should say they rise up out of the bottom three, because of the way the lottery works now and the percentages being flattened. Realistically, as long as you're in the bottom 5 or 6, you still have a pretty good shot at the top pick.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those bottom three are 14% apiece. The fourth pick, I think, is something like 13.5 or 13, and then it's 12.5 or 12. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. That's probably a Paul Garcia question, but like the percentages don't drop off that drastically like they used to. It used to basically be 20% down to 14.5%, down to like 12%, so on and so forth. But just keep that in mind, Spurs fans. Don't lose your cool if the Spurs win a couple extra games here and there. Don't be mad about it. That's all.
Oh yeah. Like we mentioned earlier, I don't think anyone's expectations are to us to win anything substantial, but that is a great leeway to bring up this question that I received in my DMs about some other top prospects after Scoot and Victor. But right after, or actually right before we get to that, I did want to mention just a couple of things about Victor. That was another question that was also brought up. Just so we could stay on one topic at hand. When it comes down to Victor, this kid, we said 7'3", 7'4" with shoes on, excuse me, as an 8-foot wingspan. Don't know how much he weighs. They're hiding that for a good reason. It probably fluctuates every single day. We just found out this kid has never lifted a weight in his life. A lot of plyometrics work, probably how Ben was saying, mentioning earlier. Literally, this kid is doing the band work, a lot of push-ups, and he has someone catering to his every single need. As soon as he comes to the bench, ready to rub his shoulders, got the massage gun locked and loaded, ready to go. He's being pampered like LeBron James, literally like a LeBron James type of prospect, but in a whole new era. Seeing him, walking into the stadium to the Lakers game, in the top to bottom, just seeing this kid embrace the number one pick role and without doing anything cocky, shaking LeBron's hand, embracing AD, has the size 20, size 20 foot. And what I found out through one of my friends in draft Twitter, that size obviously is not really manufactured that well, but a way to promote himself, which is kind of a leeway to the next question I was going to bring up, a way to hype himself up a little bit more, get himself more eyes on him. This kid has custom Nike Dunks and Nike SBs delivered to him almost every single week, along to go with custom KDs to just to top it all off on every single type of celebrity factor this kid brings. And that's something I wanted just to mention, just because in terms of value to the Spurs, this kid will be bringing up an estimated worth of over $500 million to the team if drafted. Obviously, ticket sales would go up. Obviously, international sales would go up. Obviously,
That is,
people want.
and that number is according to ESPN's Jonathan Givony, who
Yep.
said that Victor Wembanyama could potentially add $500 million of valuation to whoever ends up picking him.
Yep. And it's probably going to be even more, especially if he shows out. The next question I had to go along with him, like I said, we're trying to stay on topic of one person at hand. Then we're going to go more and more. When it comes down to Victor, his injury history, you mentioned, Ben, they were minor. There are a lot of just, I don't want to say bumps and bruises, but actual fractures, actual injuries that need rest time without any surgery. He's never had any surgery. He's never had any structural damage to a T. But this last injury he sustained during the spring, it's a spoil injury. It's between the spine and the hip. Pretty much, he won't be, like I said in the last space, he wouldn't be able to, hit a quick salsa lesson. He would be in pain trying to turn in an office chair. He'd be in pain lifting, doing squats. That kept him out of the Eurobasket tournament. Obviously, he would play for Team France. It would have been a great showcasing to see him against NBA level talent in that tournament, but obviously that didn't come to fruition. But when it comes down to him, like we said, is his injury history going to be scary for the future? People are saying Chet this, Chet that. Two different bodies, two different actual archetypes in terms of what they bring to the table and actual people. Chet, in terms of his how he was mentored, how he was coached, how he was prepping his body. Uh, Growing up, what I've heard to a T, because when I joined Draft Squad, it was a little bit premature to when his high school days or what he was playing with Jalen Suggs. What I've heard from people were exactly this kid doesn't really work out that often. He comes to a gym, laces him up, hoops, doesn't doesn't like to run, fairly lazy, doesn't wash his face, doesn't brush his teeth, doesn't have any type of actual I would say showmanship to be like an actual adult, but he's literally just like the laziest pro hooper that can show up at any point in time. And to say, when you look at him, I'm sorry, sorry, I'm getting some funny messages. When you look at Chet and when you see his archetype and himself without his shirt off, he's soft. When you punch him in his gut, it literally it's soft. He has no upper body strength. He has no shoulder stability. He has no actual frame that is intact. Wemby, however, he's not strong, he's not girthy, but he's toned. He has built to it. He has a built to himself, and ideally, that's not as frail, it's not as scary as Chet. But being 7'4", that center of gravity being higher, him being more of an elusive wing, him dribbling, shooting to the wing of movement threes, 40 feet away, bottom of the net, that type of stuff we don't see from Chet, and that type of stuff, is Wemby only. So is that scary to me? No. Like I said early in the space, he's seen every single specialist, every single back specialist, foot specialist, leg specialist in the world. This kid is being pampered like a superstar already, and he's embracing it. So I don't have any problems with it. I know I'm embracing this and talking this too long. Ben, I know I'm sorry, but he's just such an exciting young prospect, and this will be the icing on the cake for all the Spurs fans that have been waiting so long. I know this is going to be the guy. He's the perfect fit. He probably wants to be here, which is so important. So, but after this, Ben, we got to talk about a couple other prospects as well as answer questions if anybody has any questions.
Yeah,
That's
if you
all I
guys
got.
want to come up, you have some questions, some comments. We're happy to answer. Go back and forth. I don't think we're going to do any more prospects this spaces, mostly because a lot of them are going to be collegiate guys, and their season hasn't started yet. So I don't want to speculate too much about how they might look, especially because they haven't played. A lot of these guys are going to be one and dones. They haven't played at the college level yet, so they might look differently than what we expect, and so a little easier to react to that rather than try and predict it. But there were a couple guys on the G League Ignite team that we saw. You and I, kind of offline, were talking about it. I mean, CD Sissoko, we thought had some nice moments in those two games.
Definitely.
Leonard Miller looked different from the combine, but we're not quite sure if he helped himself out or not.
Yeah, guarding Wemby is very tough. You will get dunked on more than likely if you guard Wemby. It was funny having someone with a 7'1" wingspan, 6'8", 6'9", flying at you, and his shot contest barely not being able at hitting his elbow, not even being close. That's kind of scary. But that's just the old Leonard Miller discourse that we love to see. In terms of some top prospects, real quick, because the person that asked me this just really wanted to hear a couple of just quick guys real quick. Derek Lively from Duke, a center that probably picked the first big man after Wemby. Realistically, he's working on his outside game a little bit. It's a little frail. I don't really have a player comp for him right yet because, like I said, like Ben said, we haven't seen him in a college game. When you look at high school tape, these guys look like All-Americans. These guys look like they all look like crazy, just 5-star athletes that should be compared to Hall of Famers, but
Yeah,
in college it's completely different. So
and
we got
in
to.
high school, it becomes hard to scout people in high school just because you don't see a lot of competition unless you're playing on those grassroots programs, like you're playing in the Nike EYBL, you're playing on the Under Armour circuit, the Adidas circuit. where there's more equal talent there, because a lot of these guys will play in kind of frankly terrible leagues or conferences in their home states for their their high school or whatever. And it's like they can't help that. There's nothing they can do about it other than if you can get a scholarship to like an IMG or a Montverdon, they kind of choose their
Mm-hmm.
competition, but they only have so many roster spots as well. So because like if you look at a guy like Kyle Filipowski, who is going to Duke, some people have him graded to go in the first round. Like against the competition he played in high school. That's a guy who looks like an All-American. He looks like he was, he's just making people look silly all over the place. He's I missed a bunny. I can go grab it and put it back in. It's easy because nobody can guard me. And you could probably say the same for Derek Lively, for a lot of other guys who are going to other schools, like a Cam Whitmore who's going to Villanova. But that's why it's so important to let those college games happen first before trying to make any predictions.
Real quick, before we get to the last part of the space of the segment, because there are a lot of people asking me about Don Barlow finally getting some minutes, some. It was valuable minutes. It was last night he scored 9 points. But before we get to him, when it comes down to these people that I mentioned, these are the names that I predict. This is my prediction, so this is recorded space. I will say this on recorded space. These are the players that I predict that will stay in the top, lottery, top 10, top 15, in terms of, we've seen the who in the past. That's a good example, like Brandon Boston, Caleb Houston last year. Guys that just seem like, because I'm a 5-star, I'm going to a school that is a position of need. I'm probably going to start. I'm going to be a top 10 pick. Psych, you're in the second round. Psych, you're in the G League. Psych, you just proved a lot of people wrong in 10 weeks. Johnny Davis wasn't ranked last year at all. People really were pushing for Jaden Ivey to get more playing time as a freshman, and then boom, he's a top 4 pick coming as a sophomore. Or top 5 pick, excuse me. So when it comes down to it, I predict that Dariq Whitehead will sustain his position even after this injury at Duke. Will be a top 7 pick. I don't want to say 5 or 6, but I'll say 7. And between the Thompson twins, we'll talk about them a lot more later on, without a doubt. But he's somebody that honestly has played to be able to play with R.J. Barrett, Kay Cunningham, Precious Achua at from 15, 16 years old, having these guys as mentors. This guy has an NBA body already. He's going to put Duke, I don't say on in championship contention, but the Duke wing, how do you say it? What's the word? What's the term? It's like a championship term. The Duke wing, how do you? I'm just pass the Duke wing.
The
I can't think of it.
tradition?
No. I'll think of it later. It's pretty much like the best wings go to Duke. That'll be a tradition from here on out, and it'll keep going because he'll be a one and done. The next one will come, and it'll be a tradition. Yeah, on and on. I forgot the term. That's embarrassing. Who cares? Move on. And when it comes down to it, I do believe that Keontae George will be a top 7 pick, top 8 pick out of Baylor. The shooting guard that is ranked below a guy like Nick Smith, not getting a lot of love. They'll play each other a bunch in the beginning of the season, but when you think about it, I love the kid with more experience, a better coach, a better system to score, and he's going to be the leading scorer for that team. Nick Smith, I honestly believe he'll fall. I do believe he'll be this year's Brandon Boston. I do believe that he will not be the first Arkansas Razorback selected. I do believe that'll either be Anthony Black or Jordan Walsh, and that's okay. Nick Smith is a great shooting guard. He can score. He's elite. But is he this year's Jaden Hardy, or is he this year's Jaden Ivey? You see what I'm saying? You don't know. I'm predicting that he'll probably fall out. He was probably a top 3 pick. I'm not so sure about that. I'd rather take a Thompson twin. But
I don't think he falls as far as you're predicting. I think he'll only fall only because everybody has him as the number 3 and the clear cut number 3 right now, and I just don't think there's a way for him to live up to that hype, and so
nope.
he's going to move down, but I don't see him moving out of the lottery
Oh yeah,
unless
no.
something terrible happens.
he's gonna be like a top 20 guy. I think he'll probably be in that Jaden Hardy range of where he should be, and like he'll be in that fit that 10 to 20, depending on the team, depending on where he would actually want to go, because he's somebody that is an isolation scorer that can give you 20 points per game in a summer league game, but would want to play in the rotation. And this is my prediction, in the rotation as a rookie, and not just be, sitting in the G League ready to cook, because he already has I don't want to say 3 level scoring abilities, but he has the confidence to be a 3 level scorer already. So that's just Nick Smith, man, and I'm super excited for him. Not trying to slide him in any way, but every single year we see the same thing. These top 3 guys, top 4 guys. Cam Whitmore, to me, is a top 3 lock. That okay, the to be 6'8", 6'9", and the only thing that is a knock to your game is you can't shoot. That sounds a lot like Scotty Barnes, or that sounds like Jeremy Sohan. But he's top 5. He's top 5 in terms of talks of all the draft Twitter, all the group chats I've been. He's top 5, top 5, top 5. Villanova has set himself as a system for him, just to be able to push the ball in transition. I watched the scrimmage of him with the blue and white scrimmage last week on the recap. He basically has the confidence of a LeBron James, being able to run the offense, pick and roll as a roll man, as an initiator. And if he's not scoring 20 points per game, 10 rebounds, not on the average, but on a gimme night, not on the average, maybe like 8 or 9 on the average, that's a top 3 pick. The Thompson twins, Amon and Asar. Amen is the point guard. You can remember that term as like a Amen. He can do it all. Asar is like the kid with the sauce. He's the wing. He can sauce you up. Realistically, they're the only people that can knock him off that top 3, top 4 spot, because we really haven't seen them play against like league level or college level competition. They're trying to. They're playing them against EuroLeague guys. We've seen those scrimmages the past few weeks, but I'm just not sure, man. Well, it's Cam's spot to lose right now, but I may be eating those words 6 months from now. I'll say that.
I think the other thing with Cam Whitmore at Villanova is we have to remember he's coming into a situation where they had their longtime coach retire in the offseason, really out of nowhere. And so they've got a new coach. Granted, that coach has been in the system. He knows the system. I assume he's not going to change much, if anything, but it's still adjusting to a new coach. I don't think it was the guy who recruited him initially, so he had to kind of convince him to stay and be like and say, hey, I'll still do what Jay Wright was going to do with you anyway, but you just got me instead. And they have enough veteran leadership that they should be
Yeah,
able to help him out. But
yeah.
I would be very curious to see how he looks leading that team. If he is as confident as you say he is, and he plays that way in once the conference slate starts, and he's kind of not even necessarily dominating Big East competition, but he's playing really well against Big East competition. I think that goes a long way. That's a Power Six conference in college basketball. There are going to be some good teams. I think they have an okay out of conference schedule, but I'm excited about him. Like you said, he's a wing. He does a little bit of everything else except shooting right now, and for all we know, that could be the only thing he did over the offseason between high school and college, and just said, I'm going to get in the gym and I'm going to shoot 1,000 times a day, whatever it is. So,
And
um,
he actually has the archetype and the body build of somebody we're gonna talk about as we close. The current Spur that finally got minutes last night, Don Barlow. Last thing about Cam, real quick though, to be the engine of the offense and to already have your Robin and your seniority and already have honestly a roster that's locked and loaded, ready to go on a deep March Madness run right now. Already has a lot of chemistry. Like I said, watching the scrimmage last week, when you have somebody that's a freshman of that talent, that everyone is already okay, we're on board. He's our Chris Webber. He's our LeBron. Check. He's our this. He's our engine of offense. Whatever you say goes. And the coaches, oh, I'm down. Yep, we got it. Yep, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That can be really good or really bad, and I feel like that'll really be answered fairly soon. Probably within like after like what the first Maui tournament, all those little tournaments outside of the states, and then Madison Square Garden those first few weeks, yeah, we'll see what he's really like, and obviously we'll be here to report that. But that brings us to our last topic at hand. 40-minute space. Sorry for all the rambles. I'm sorry. We're so excited just to give you guys all this news, all what we heard, all what we're watching, all what we're listening to. But last night, Don Barlow, hey, when you get trash minutes, and you knock down a three, you get a little transition play, a little transition layup. You get a little isolation, a little Euro step play. I'm happy. I'm proud. I knew we had that in this game, but knowing that Pop had to play him against the G League level talent, the John Butlers, all those type of guys, that 2-way contract type of guys, and he showcased, hey, I'm ready. Let's go. Will he be in Austin? You bet your ass. He'll be in Austin probably all year. Will he get any valuable minutes for the Spurs without any injuries? Probably without. Maybe in the end of the year, maybe around March and April, yeah, without a doubt. But man, I'm excited. He's a great athlete for his size. A great athlete. Nowhere near like a Kendall Brown or like a Shadon Sharp or anything like that, right? To the people in his class. But for his size, hey, confidence, agility, mobility. Show me something. Knock down the three. My jaw dropped. Knock down that three. My jaw dropped. We brought back Viraj. I sent him back a request because he was trying to get up here earlier. It was his questions we answered. Did you have anything to say before we close things out, man? I know you were probably watching the game. You've been super consistent with me talking over the summer about these guys. How you been? I'm not sure if he's there. Let's see if he's there. Uh-oh. We got to get us some sound effects, Ben. In other spaces I'm in, we go wah 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 when we can't hear. We don't have connection issues. We got to get that going.
We'll have to. We'll get Joe on that. Yes.
Get a little soundboard. He said my bad. My connection is bugging out. We do actually have to close things out. Unless you want to send me what you have to say real quick, man. But at the end of the day, these are spaces, just to keep people excited about the topics at hand. To know that Lily, this is going to be realistically the season, just to set the table, just to allow everyone to say, hey, do you want this role? Prove it. Do you want to be a point guard? Let's see it. Do you want to be a combo guard for the future, a six man? You want to be the starting point power forward, the defensive power forward that gets 18 minutes? KBD, you good? You want to be traded? There's going to be moves every single day, and I'm so excited. We have one more request. Tavarius, I appreciate you, Ben, for bringing him up. Tavarius, how you doing, man? I know you got a question.
Yeah, I'm great.
What's going on? How are you?
Who do you guys see filling that 4 spot?
The starting 4 spot. I love me some Isaiah Roby. He brings a lot to the table. He's pretty much a baby John Collins, in my opinion. He's not going to be able to score off the dribble. He can knock down corner threes. He's not as agile as a defender as Jamie Sohan, but being able to have him on the court, be the glue guy, it's his role to lose, but it'll be Jamie Sohan's to have in the future if he can sustain it. I would love it to be Jamie's not off rip, but I would love for him to prove and then possibly to play together as a small ball 4, small ball 5 tandem. They're both solid playmakers. Like I said, the confidence to take threes is there. The ability, but the confidence is there. So right now, Isaiah Roby's to lose. I don't want to see any power forward Doug McDermott. He's 6'7". He's 6'7".
He's a wing guy. We know that.
He should play power forward.
They've already talked about McDermott coming off the bench anyway and being the spark off the bench. So I'm not even concerned about that.
Thank the Lord.
But I actually think that's a trick question. I think the Spurs are just going to go out there and actually just roll out 4 players to start every game. No, I'm just kidding. That would be terrible. But I think Evan's right on this one. It could be Isaiah Roby's to start. He's a guy who wants to prove a lot. He's shuffled between a couple teams. He wants San Antonio to be his last stop if possible. And he's going to kind of hold it down until Jeremy Sohan is really ready, or the staff feels that Sohan is really ready to take over the starting position and run with it. And that may be precipitated by other trades as well.
Also, do you guys see Branham getting any minutes or what? Is he going straight to Austin?
he should get some minutes in San Antonio. I was 100% under the impression that Josh, alongside maybe Jakob and or Doug, would be traded so he can get minutes alongside Primo. That's just like the teenager lineup. Honestly, there's no need for a vet in that lineup unless you're starting. And we already have Devin and Keldon to be our wings for the future. For now, keyword for now, Joe Garcia. I know you're listening, but literally, when it comes down to it, I just love the fact that he's ready and he's willing to be somebody who's willing to ride not ride the bench all game long, but willing to say, hey, Blake, no issue. You get your 20, I'll get my 14 minutes. I don't think he'll be in Austin. I think that'll probably be the two-way guys, and we have a lot of two-way guys. And once you sign a guarantee, is it a guarantee contract, Ben? And you get cut, you're still on the Austin Spurs roster. You still have the rights, correct?
I believe so. I want to say that's right.
Gotcha.
You can only have two designated two-way players. Otherwise, you own their rights and they play on your G League team. I think you can shuffle them. You only get, with the non-two-way guys, you get a certain amount of times you can shuffle them back and forth until you have to either fully guarantee their contract, or you have to make them a two-way player and the Spurs would have to do that by making one of their current two-way guys like a guaranteed contract.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's definitely a Paul Garcia question. I'm glad we have him on our team. When it comes down to it, literally, I think that we're just gonna have to start a group chat with him right away just to be able to answer these percentage questions, these contract questions, because I guarantee there's gonna be a lot of roster, a lot of just movement going on for the next, even probably to start the season. Obviously, they have some spots to cut. I believe. Everybody kind of has that feeling that it'll probably be Romeo Langford or KBD. I saw maybe Joe Wieskamp thrown in that mix. I don't think he is somebody that has proved and showcased, hey, I'm a Spur for life or I'm a Spur for the future. But I just don't think that he's going to be cut. A second round pick that showcased that he's actually played a little bit better than Primo in the G League last year. Yeah, I'm gonna give Joe Wieskamp baby another chance. Just signed a new contract. The kid loves to be in San Antonio. Family man already. Yeah, let's run it back. Will he be playing any valuable minutes? Barring injury, probably not. Man, Ben, one last question, and I didn't mean to say it in a negative way, but we have to just wrap this up really quick. One last question. We have, what was what are our thoughts of between JJ Redick's podcast and DeMar DeRozan saying that he wasn't feeling wanted here? Ben, I'm gonna throw it to you, and I'm rebuttal.
I'm not sure that's an accurate representation of what he said. I don't think he said he didn't want to. I don't think he said anything about like Spurs not wanting him to be there. I think I know there was a comment that he had about he wasn't showcased enough, or he didn't feel the love because he played in San Antonio, which is totally fair. If the Spurs aren't winning consistently and getting to the playoffs, people outside of San Antonio do not care. They don't. But that's the reality.
That's
Whereas,
true.
like, if you're the Knicks, you can be terrible every year. You can consistently not make the playoffs, and people still are talking about you. Yeah. Which to me it drives me nuts, because yes, I get it. They're a big market team, whatever. But if you're playing like garbage, and your team is bad, and you are getting overhyped, at some point, it is the media outside of New York City's responsibility to stop talking about them. And they refuse to do that. And there should have been a lot more talk about how DeMar DeRozan was putting the Spurs on his back for like 2 or 3 straight years.
Yeah.
And if you're DeMar DeRozan and people aren't talking about you in that way while you're trying everything in your power to make this team competitive despite not having great pieces around you, I would also feel slighted. I totally understand. I would be very frustrated.
And Bobo DeMar DeRozan wasn't that great. It was actually pretty bad from what I remember. and that was just like his last way out. He kind of wasn't. He didn't get the red carpet treatment, I believe, how he had in Toronto. He was obviously the beloved star. He wasn't an all-star. He wasn't in any super national media news. Uh, he wasn't in any trouble. He didn't do anything to hurt his case, but he obviously wasn't getting the same respect as he felt he should, as I should say. Because when it comes down to it in Chicago, when he was in that quote unquote MVP race, when he was knocking down buzzer beating threes, back to back nights, 2 weeks in a row, yeah, he was a hot name, but those hot stretches, that reminds me of Bradley Beal 2 years ago. That reminds me of Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs as a rookie and the second-year player. That reminds me of stretches where players like D'Angelo Russell are the craziest hot new player, and then he's a role player. You know? So if you don't have that superstar factor, you can't really, say that much. And a superstar is a guy like Jokic, Embiid, superstars, James Harden as a Rocket. That's a superstar, not DeMar DeRozan as a Spur. He's a star. He's cool. He's our vet. He's a great guy. Hey, but
That's fine. There's maybe 10 superstars in the league, but at
yeah,
the same time, at some point you have to talk about somebody other than superstars. There's a lot of blame to go around for how things ended with DeMar DeRozan, why he got traded. I think the Spurs ultimately made the right move. Chicago has had a myriad of its own issues, not including DeMar DeRozan. They've had a lot of injury issues. The whole thing with Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine was injured, and so like they didn't meet their hype. But it's the NBA discourse. There's just not enough discourse around guys like a DeRozan who are doing even that late in his career on a team that wasn't necessarily very good. He was putting up his best numbers. He was putting up some of his best seasons,
yeah,
and nobody was talking about it, which is unfair to him.
because he
I
was
mean,
the first. He was the first option. He was
yep,
somebody who had no restraint. He was somebody that would play until he couldn't play no more, 33, 34 plus minutes. And when he comes down to it, he would get that in Toronto, but he would run into LeBron. But he'd run into defensive sets that would be meant to stop him. Before, you remember when small forwards were the 6'8" LeBron stoppers? That's not a thing anymore. You got to be the 6'5", 6'6" Lonnie Walker, R.J. Barrett, those type of guys. And he's dominating those type of guys now. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Like
yep,
he's literally being able to get to the basket or get to the free throw line almost every single time, if not every single time, rather than having to kick out of a double team or pass to an open man, which he's really not that good at in the first place. So, in the Spurs system, Pop set him up to be for success. He was thriving for a while. He was inconsistent at times, but you can only ask for so much in San Antonio, man. You get an HEB commercial, and what else? A mural, right? That's it.
yeah, they can't offer the national exposure you're hoping for, but I mean, that's how it goes.
But I think that's all the time we have today, guys. Me and Ben are working really hard in terms of just to give you guys the right discourse, not just for the Spurs, but for the draft this upcoming year. When it comes down to it, there's a lot of national media that will tell you what you want to hear or what they're paid to tell you. We're here to tell you everything you are supposed to hear, everything that you should hear, everything that you want to hear, but maybe not in the right way. That's coming from me, though. That's my rule. Ben is a more structured guy, so we'll be here every week, more than likely, if not every other week. We're gonna do our thing, try and give you guys more content in terms of draft, in terms of Spurs stuff, in terms of all the new news. If you have any questions, feel free to DM us at any point in time. We'll get back to you right away. And at the end of the day, these spaces are recorded. They're on YouTube. Where else, Ben? They're on YouTube. They're on other platforms. If, like I said,
They go wherever Joe puts them because he's magic.
and Joe is a magician. He is literally our how do you say, our savior when it comes down to making sure this content looks and sounds the best it has as it's been. And we thank you so much. Give Joe a follow. Give Ben a follow. He's on the Project Spurs page at @the_Boomstein. Make sure you give him and show all of his articles some love. We'll be giving you guys more weekly draft content as the season goes on. Season starts in a few weeks. So if anyone has any questions, like I said, holla at us. Until then, peace. Talk to y'all later.
Have a good one, everyone. Thanks. Appreciate it.